Hello and welcome to another modelling video. This is Alan from the Mokona Man at YouTube with another Q&A session. This is going out a bit late, my apologies, been a bit under the weather. All due, we will get straight into it. One question which was in private message form: why do I film in 480 DP and not 1080? High def is the future, it's the standard, it's what everyone's doing. My quality's too low, and that it's frustrating, not fun, whatever. Unfortunately, I've got limited funds, time, which is a really big factor, and equipment. And my biggest hobby is building models, and that's what I try to invest as much spare time as humanly possible into. The video editing part and interaction on social media can sometimes be a bit time consuming, a bit of a drag, though I try to get those done as soon as humanly possible in small little batches, and it's very fun that way. So videos are generally made as quick and easily and non-frill as humanly possible. Upping the quality will take time to render the videos on my computer, which is a bit slow, a bit old, just like the rest of my aging equipment. Sometime in the future, when hard drive space, a computer with an operating system and a camera is a lot cheaper, I will consider upping it, but for now it's going to stay for the meantimes. Though I am able to put out a quantity of videos opposed to quality in camera angles and effects and whatnot, and a lot of the stuff that I build, you can see high res photos that are posted in social media as well that appears in this videos. So still videos or slideshow videos, even at a low DP, you can see all the nice beautiful detail. Motion, that's a bit shit, but you generally get the idea if I'm cutting a piece or airbrushing or doing something. So it's really not that vital or important to me at the moment, and continuing work and covering topics that other people either rarely do or not at all is more so the challenge, especially on this platform. We've got John. New to airbrushing, any general tips or advice? What sort of paint would you recommend? Generally, I've got the Honing Your Airbrush Skills series. At the moment, I'm really for buying a cheap airbrush off eBay. I'm going to be doing a series about that, a Hysing brand. They don't actually sell it as Hysing, but the double action airbrushes that you see on eBay are the way to go. Send me a message and I'm happy to send you a link. I will make a video about what cheap brands of airbrushes to buy and what not. That will definitely be in the works. Sink all of your money in the best and nicest hobby compressor you can honestly get. The better the quality and the higher the brand, the likelier it's just going to be permanent and live forever quietly, powerfully. Chip out, and they have a tendency of breaking down. I've always had sort of a mid-tier compressor, and after several years of very intense work, it just starts to split at the seams. I'm about to replace my second ever compressor, but with a model that I'm actively selling in Australia. Have you tried the ACRYSION line from Mr. Hobby? I had a look at it. It's just like their Aquarius line. It supposedly has self-leveling agents and dries very, very quickly. I do not have access to it, nor will for a very long time in Australia. I am somewhat fascinated, not for my use, but to see what it's all about and hold a conversation. I will try to get my hands on a jar, airbrush it, hand paint it, and give a bit of an opinion, a tutorial, a video. Thank you very much for bringing that to my attention. Sometimes hobby releases I just miss out because I'm sort of almost tunnel vision when it comes to lacquers. A lot of new releases in paints has been all Vallejo, polyurethane, and I just completely ignore that. So yeah, once you start airbrushing, it's all about practice and how often you airbrush, and you just learn about the state of your airbrush, pull it apart, put it back together, how it flows and sprays when it's perfectly clean, and just keep painting lines, and if there's any problems, pull it apart, clean it, fault find, put it back together and see if it can be operating good again. This is very frustrating. It's going to take a little while to get right. But it is worthwhile, as later on you can focus on the painting and not so much the maintenance or the mechanical components. If you require a little assistance on that, the Homing Your Airbrush Videos series will help you. Shoot a line, I'm happy to assist you in fault finding. Next question. Welp, here goes for mine. What's the major difference between wet and dry sanding? I know modelers usually wet sand coats of paint for a smoother finish and all, but is there a difference when sanding bare plastic? I used to dry sand, and all it did was just you sand less. It cuts deeper in the material, it leaves deeper scratches or craters, builds up dust and wears out your sandpaper quicker. I found that going to a higher grit and using wet is lubricant. It collects the dust and you just get dirty water, and it leaves a smoother finish in sanding the plastic, as well as you do with your paint. I find the sandpaper lasts a lot longer and you can use the same piece on more pieces of your model. When it comes to wet and dry sanding, I say wet sanding all the way. It's best to try out both and see what you think. Resin, it's important. When it comes to painting or sanding a painted surface, it's mandatory. But for everything else, if it's the superior method, it's definitely the way to go. Wet and dry sandpaper is a fraction more expensive than just standard dry sandpaper, but you get such large quantities and you use such small strips, it doesn't matter too much in the long run. Next question. We've got our friend with the Baltic, Eastern European, Russian text. Hi there, thank you for answering my inquiries from your last FAQ. I have another question. Always welcome, my friend. Give us a nickname to work with next time. I recently watched a video tutorial on how to maintain cheap airbrush, and the video featured lubing the needle with Tamiya polisher. Now, I've watched the same video. It was amazing. I was really fascinated with the beeswax application on a nozzle and building up pressure and stopping the leaking of air there. It's something I'm going to try immediately. I've got some beeswax on order, so I'm going to try to mimic his video and see my findings with it. But this is about polishing your needle. Generally, some cheap airbrushes have a beautifully polished needle. Some of them don't. The ones I tend to be not too bad, though once they get a hook or it's a little roughed up, I like to hit it with a bit of sandpaper. Let's start with a roughish grit around 300, move your way up to about 1000, just lightly polishing it, just getting any hooks out and whatnot. Poorer airbrushes can sort of have steps to the needles, sort of like it's been lathed very, very poorly, especially if it's like a CNC lathe. What you want to do is probably hit it with high grit sandpaper and then polish it just like they did in the video. Any polish, because we're polishing metal, not a painted surface or a plastic surface where we're worried about solvents in the polish ruining things. It's metal, we can polish it with anything. If you happen to have a Tamiya polisher or Mr. Compound, whatever's on your desk, that will work to polish your needle. It will make it retract the paint. It will just glide over the needle straight out the nozzle and atomize a lot easier. But it's generally polishing and not lubricating. If you have car polish in the garage, if you have any sort of polish and polishing cloth in the household, it'll work. But you're talking about compound buffing polish and not clear coat floor polish like Pledge Future Floor. That will thicken your needle and make it not work. We want to buff it to a smooth finish. So just whatever you have, it doesn't matter, you're polishing metal, And obviously whoever did it happened to have Tamiya polisher or whatever they had. When I googled this product, I learned that this is a product great for polishing airplane models, cars, and nothing refers that it can be used for your needle. Tamiya polisher, Mr. Hobby polisher is generally the same as any type of polish if it's for your cars, glass, whatever. It has a lower quantity of solvents in it and less likely to damage paint or damage plastic. It will still polish metals and other things, but because it's such a small amount that's really, really expensive, if you're only going to be polishing metal, it's not worth getting. If you do plan on polishing your plastics and your paints and whatnot, get it and just use a little bit for your needle. Doesn't matter at all. It just matters once you're using cheaper polishes on your model that might eat into the paint or do damage. So yeah, it works, doesn't matter. Can you let me know if I could still use this Tamiya paste to polish a needle? I referred to this video. I'm going to put the video link down below. Very cool, check it out. Don't know who the guy is, don't know who the model is. I might check out more of his stuff and follow him myself, reach out. But really, really cool video. Check it out for you guys that follow my homing airbrush videos and looking to improve your cheaper high-sing stuff. Mate, my man, thank you very much for sharing that. That was an excellent question. That was an excellent source. Yeah, I like you, man. I hope that answers your question. My friend Joseph, long time supporter of the channel. Hello Alan, any tips for reverse wash technique? Can I use lacquer paint, Mr. Colour, with Tamiya acrylic as a reverse wash technique? Keep going, thank you very much. Of course, generally the paint underneath you want it to have as solvent resistant and humanly possible and something that can't be damaged, or at least a top coat of something that can't be damaged. Lacquer is ideal. You put acrylic on top, use solvents to remove the layer of acrylic on top and have the lacquer showing below. Tamiya acrylic would be highly appropriate with a bit of alcohol thinner wiping it away. Generally add a little retardant to the paint, freshly apply it. The sooner you remove it, the easier it is. Once it starts to dry and harden, it gets a bit trickier. So spray the bit and then immediately go into removing that layer of paint on the raised detail. It will save you so much headache. Or even minutes afterwards, don't let it dry. And if it dries, that's not a big deal, but you can still do it. Have a clear coat in between the lacquer paint colour and the acrylic. In the event that you use a little too much alcohol and it affects the layer below, it's affecting clear coat, not the base paint, so that can be buffed or polished or whatever. It'd probably be pretty cool to polish it afterwards to help neaten it up even a little further. Thank you very much, Joseph. We'll see you around. Tosco Bits. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Hello, Alan. Do you have a display room for all your finished works? Any chances of showing them to us? The little studio I've got is all I have display-wise, built, unbuilt, all that. Everything else I store on the roof. I live in a shared location. I do intend to move into a larger location where it will just be myself and someone else. And that would give me the room to get cabinets and shelves and store and display a lot more of my work. I also plan on operating a business out of this address, so it'll be sort of a thing that people can look at the models when they're waiting for me or dealing with business or whatever. Once that's all up and done, I'll definitely do a tour of the new house, a tour of the new work area, how it's set up to my taste and needs, as well as the display and relevant bits of my business that may or may not relate to the hobby. Stay tuned, that is a long-term thing, we're talking about years. So behind me is just the latest models I have and my entire tank collection. These models are likely to go to other displays, model competitions and whatnot. At the end of the year they get packed away in a box sent to the roof, and new models I build go up there. Sometimes models I really like might stay up there for a little while longer. But that's just the GIF. Once I have this larger place, then I can have many models on display. I also sometimes display work or more prominent work in some hobby shops around Melbourne. I normally advertise the fact in my Facebook page where you could go out and visit it. I think I've probably almost displayed in every major Gundam selling store in Melbourne. So that's also a place to see some work. But generally, every model I've built, there's a photo of it. There's a gallery on my Facebook page, portfolio. That's got everything from my oldest models to my current models in a weird order. And you can sort of have a look at those individually and enjoy that. But yeah, that's the gist. John! Okay, I've got some more for you. Thank you very much. What size nozzle do you use on your airbrush? 0.3, rare occasions 0.5, super rare occasions 0.2, but 99% of the time 0.3. I specify that mostly in the description of my Homing Your Airbrush Skills video, but I probably should say it verbally more. That is a very good point. What size needle? Exactly the same. The needles correspond with the nozzles. Same brand of needle and nozzle. Same size. The needle and the nozzle are tapered for each other. If you use the incorrect combination, the paint will either not atomize right, or worse, you will split your nozzle and it will definitely not atomize correctly. So it's important that they're paired together. Again, this is probably definitely a topic I need to cover in Honing Your Airbrush Skills video. Thank you very much for bringing it up. I will definitely run it into an episode. Do they have to be the same size? Yes. Why is my airbrush splattering out splotches of paint? You either need to adjust the crown, either have it fully tightened or slightly open. I've just picked up a new technique that putting beeswax on the nozzle may help. That is a long time off. 90% chance the reason why it's spluttering is your nozzle is split because it's been forced in. It's gotten a bit weak. You probably used a little too much force. It is very, very weak, soft brass. The size of the opening is like 2 pieces of paper on top of each other. So it does wear out very, very frequently. Change the nozzle, give it a thorough clean, adjust the crown if you have to, spray some water or thinner out, adjust it until the flow coming out of it looks as wide and big as humanly possible, and then paint some lines. Once your lines are really, really nice, that should definitely fix it. But I'm pretty sure it's a split nozzle. Take your nozzle out, put it on your needle, spin around, see if the needle is protruding way too much through, or that the seal around the needle seems to be a bit weird. It could be, it's very, very subtle. You may not pick it up initially. Just replace the nozzle. If the performance is greatly improved, throw the nozzle out. Make sure there's no hooks on your needle. I hope that helps you out. But yeah, definitely a nozzle problem. And if you have been experimenting with swapping needles and nozzles, that would most likely immediately damage your nozzles. Hope, yeah, that definitely assists you, John. If you have more trouble, please shoot me a line, a message, whatever, and I'm happy to assist you further. It's not just this video. Grant! Hi, Alan. Looking at doing a Gunpla dio which has one Gunpla punching through another. Any suggestions on the best way to represent torn, bent metal, etc.? The metal where the fist is coming out. Thanks, Grant. Sometimes the best way to achieve a metal effect is with metal. When you open a tin of coffee, Milo, some sort of powdered stuff that you use to mix into a beverage, there is a foil, and that foil tends to be a little thicker than tin foil. If you cut that out with a hobby knife, you're able to glue that to the side of a hole and make it look like torn metal. If you go on eBay, you can buy foils that are a little thicker than tin foil in various materials such as lead, copper, whatnot. That's 1 micron, 2 micron, 3 micron, half a mil thick, quarter of a mil thick. Buy a series of those, have a bit of a play. They're very cheap. If you get something like a few inches by a few inches at a time at a couple of dollars, experiment a bit. I like brass a lot, so if you can find brass that's about 2-3 microns, quarter of a mil, third of a mil, that's you can cut with scissors, buy tin snips. That is just the right thickness where you're able to bend it and sculpt it with your fingers to just make it torn just right. And it's metal itself, you super glue it in place. That's what I do. Generally sculpting, plow plate, all that sort of stuff has a tendency being too thick, and when it's really thin it's really floppy. It'll be a bit fragile, so have it in a way where people can't handle it or anything that's resting up against it. I think that would be your best bet and something to play with. I hope that answers your question, Grant. If you have further, just get in touch with me. Adam. Hey, Alan. I want to do a 1/72 brick face, but can't find a tutorial for that. Tiny scale. Any ideas on how to scratch build, or is there a commercially made 1/72 brick face available? There is. You need to look at the people who do model railway layouts. There's a scale, HOOO, that's sort of something like 180 something scale, 160 scale, around that. It's pretty close. And there's a product that I've got that's 1 mil styrene sheet, and they engrave brick face. So you cut out the shape, you plop it where you need to be. There's another one that's sort of a vinyl card product that has sculpted brick face that's pre-painted and detailed. You can paint over it and detail it further, or you can have it as is. It's all probably on model railway websites. There's scratch building materials for buildings, windmills, that sort of stuff. Traditional military hobby stores where you go straight in the train section, that is your most likely bet. Or just have a look around some online hobby shops that only cater to trains. I would imagine that architectural modelling supplies places will also sell this. They sell brick face in many variety of scales to create models of buildings and structures to sell as architects, engineers and designs. They would be someone to look at. The wargaming scene eats into that as well. Have a look on eBay, have a look on websites. I've got a couple of products. I don't actually have any brands. I was sort of like unnamed or something, or very old. But I come across them regularly enough that you can also get corrugated iron plate, you can get checker plate, just all sorts of natural materials or building structures. And it is a bit of a trap. They're a little expensive. You'll see all this material, you go, I want that, I want that, I want that. You buy them all. You got a roof, you got a brick face, you got all sorts of wonderful things. It's going to look absolutely sick. Have a look at some work in progress pictures, tutorials, series on forums, Facebook, whatever, of people scratch building dioramas of buildings, model train layouts, wargaming layouts. They will give you a little more inspiration as well, but they're roughly the right direction to look at. But yeah, brick face should not be hard to find. Just typing brick face may not bring anything up, but once you start typing in building, scratch building materials, architectural, styrene plate materials, model railway layout materials, that's where the gold is. I hope that answers your question, and that is absolutely everything. Thank you very much for watching. As always, stay tuned for more content. If you feel inclined, I have a Patreon. I don't really have any perks now. It's something that will be in the future, where I've got some big projects in the works. It's long term. Facebook, I'm very active on there under the Economan with work in progresses. Sometimes a model can be made, and then it sits in a backlog, and then I make the video, put it in a schedule, gets released a month or so later. So you get to see what I'm doing live, generally speaking, and wait until the model comes out. Twitch, rare occasions. I do Twitch streams. So far, what I'm up to, I've got the Australian Open Model Expo coming up in a couple of weeks. So there's going to be an immediate video following that, my experience. Pretty much just a gallery of a ton of models that I've taken a photo of. As well as whatever products I happen to buy there, haul. After that, a few months' time, will be the Australian heat of the Gunpla Builders World Cup. I'll be documenting that. I'm steadily working on my project for that. The QBallet is doing very well. There'll be a video update on that very shortly. As we get closest to QBallet, will be more of a focus, so there'll be tutorials around techniques of building it, or videos mostly centered on that. There will be a point where my content slows down because I'll be purely focused and engulfed in that project, but I'll try to pad things up with airbrushing videos, Q&As, and just very easy to make content videos. Probably a few of my theory videos. My theory videos are just insanely popular yet easy to make. You guys loved the 3D printing misconceptions. You loved the putty one. It's definitely going to be a regular thing, just when I think of something up. If you have topics for me to do a theory video on or a discussion video on, throw it down. There is a chance that if I feel that it's in the right spectrum to cover or informative enough to cover, I'll definitely jump straight into it. And yeah, cover it for sure, because it's super easy to make. Thank you very much for watching. As always, stay tuned for further content. Catch you guys next time. We'll definitely do another Q&A next month. Peace out.